Good evening and welcome, everybody, to the Comics and Cinema Club Spooky Wookie Edition. I am your host, the Invisible Matt.
And I'm Jason Drew Voorhees. I'm running out of Halloween ideas to say, or Halloween names.
Well, the Halloween season is well and upon us, and things are looking great. But I've noticed there's been an interesting dilemma here. Some people are curious as to why we reviewed uh, the concept of Batman during last week's episode, but it sort of brought about an interesting question, and one that we hope to answer for today's episode. What makes a Halloween story a Halloween thing? And it's a bit more complicated than one might think because it comes down to being more than just scary. So we wanted to take this time to talk about what really makes a Halloween episode uh, one that lasts for so long.
Yeah, so we basically just had the idea, and we were given the idea by someone to see what we could come up with Halloween wise. Like, what makes a Halloween movie? Because there's so many movies out there that are classified as being a Halloween movie, and some of them fit being Halloween movies because they're in the season, because they're spooky, because they're scary. But then others fit in because they take place during Halloween. So, for example, something like the Batman. I mean, the movie literally, one of the opening lines beyond the when the Riddler kills the guy is Thursday, October 31st. Like, does that then make the Batman a Halloween movie, or does it just make it a superhero movie? So that's something interesting to explore.
But before we get into that, I would like to take this time to thank our very generous sponsor for today, the very, very fine folks at Wilkins Coffee. Say, Drew, do you drink Wilkins coffee at all?
I don't drink coffee.
This has been a public service announcement. Okay,
Good
now that that's
joke.
passed.
Everybody laughed. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. All right,
Anyway,
but getting into
uh,
it.
th- yes, to go into it, just like Drew said, sometimes what makes a Halloween movie more than just being scary is just that sometimes it takes place during the season. Like, I think so many people associate so many movies that typically aren't really scary with the Halloween season just because they feel a connection with it. For instance, like the Hotel Transylvania movies. I
Hmm.
know so many people who watch those every Halloween, but it's not scary. It has the scary monsters, sure, but it's an Adam Sandler comedy with silly humor, you know? It's like, what's scary about that? Well, it's not supposed to be scary, it's supposed to be funny, and it works for so many people. It gives a sense of Halloween nostalgia, or perhaps even more like innocent, the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. I don't know. I think that's definitely a Halloween project, even if it's like not particularly scary.
Hmm.
It's definitely very fun, you know.
And then there's also like all these Halloween like specials that came out on like Disney Channel. Like you would have Twitches, you'd have Wizards of Waverly Place, you'd have like Girl vs. Monster, Halloween Town, all these movies that are specifically made for Halloween and those fit the Halloween season. They're not necessarily like scary or spooky or anything like that, but they have Halloween aspects of them and they have aspects that make them. I think that like what defines a movie as being Halloween is a couple of different things. Probably the biggest factor that you need, the biggest factor is just that it's either set during Halloween, but if it's set during Halloween, then it's specifically about Halloween. So, for example, if you have something like, the Batman, even though it's set during Halloween, Halloween's just like an afterthought. It doesn't really use Halloween much beyond the date. Whereas with something like Halloween Town or even like something else that doesn't specifically take place on Halloween, it still has aspects of Halloween roped into it, it's still part of the plot. Other examples could even be like saying something like Beetlejuice is a Halloween movie because it explores ideas and themes of the undead and also has some Halloween aspects roped into it as well. It's definitely like a double-edged sword because you can say one thing is a Halloween movie, but then you can say something else is a Halloween movie. At the end of the day, like when looking at something like Halloween is a Halloween movie because it takes place on Halloween. And it's all about a serial killer running around and killing people on Halloween. That doesn't mean that there's not scary movies that still represent and uphold the aspect of Halloween, but there is a clear difference between a horror movie or a scary movie and a Halloween movie. So, for example, like on Halloween, I'm definitely gonna watch Halloween because it's a Halloween movie. But I wouldn't necessarily like there are movies that you can watch year round, like something like Ready or Not. Ready or Not could be classified as a scary movie that's fit for Halloween. But honestly, I'd watch that movie during the summer. I'd watch that movie in the fall. I'd watch that movie in the winter. Same can be said for something like Silence of the Lambs. Silence of the Lambs is a fantastic horror movie and it embodies aspects of Halloween, but I can still watch it at any time of the year and it still fits in. Something like Halloween or Halloween Town or Twitches or something along those lines fits during Halloween because it embodies everything about it. It's the same thing with Nightmare Before Christmas. You're going to watch Nightmare Before Christmas either the day on Halloween or the day after Halloween because of how it fits. It fits into the idea of it represents Halloween, it represents the spookiness, but then it also fits into like it's the bridge, it's the gap between Halloween and
Exactly.
Christmas.
Nightmare Before Christmas is a movie that it can be enjoyed during both seasons, specifically because it has so much of both wrapped up into them. It has the Halloween
Yeah.
feeling and the Christmas
Oh
feeling,
yeah.
and it comes down to what makes a Halloween feeling. And part of that isn't more than just specifically the day. I think some movies can get by just by having it set during the fall season, and that's very
Right.
appropriate. Halloween as a holiday it has a very specific feeling associated with the fall. You know, falling leaves, the oranges and the browns of the pumpkins, the bobbing for apples thing. It can come down to the simple seasonal thing, but there's also just the emotions that that specific thing invokes. And I think that it might be a bit different for the next generation than it is for us because, quite frankly, Halloween has grown and evolved and changed so much, and society has changed so much since we were kids growing up. But I think that still is something that, regardless of age, most people will be able to associate with the Halloween season. You know, just those colors, that feeling, the sort of environment that's present during the time that that's something that people are always going to associate with Halloween. And I, for one, can't wait for that season
Right.
every time it comes around. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It definitely like again, it's all about like what movie am I gonna see when Halloween rolls around? Am I gonna watch something that I can watch at any time of the year? Or am I gonna watch something that fits with the season? I'm still gonna make sure that I'm watching some movies that are scary and spooky and have aspects to them and that work. But I'm also gonna try my best to really watch something that fits into the Halloween season and that embodies it as a whole.
And it's interesting that we brought up Halloween earlier because Halloween is definitely a film that everybody watches specifically during the time. But here's an interesting story about Halloween, and I'm going to bring this up again when we review the movie proper. It was meant to be a sort of at the beginning of a sort of anthology series that John Carpenter and other people would headline, uh,
Mhm.
focusing on different creatures or different things, all centered around Halloween. It was never supposed to be the Michael Myers franchise, but because Michael was so well done, it became that, unfortunately. But they did make an attempt to go back to that with Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, and it definitely matches the sort of idea that they're going for because that movie engrosses itself so much in Halloween as a concept that it definitely comes across it uh, as very fitting for to be a Halloween movie, not just, you know, another scary movie. Because I can name so many random scary movies off the top of my head that I don't associate with the Halloween season, you know, like I don't know, uh The Possession, or even the Paranormal Activity movies, or uh, Blair Witch. Those are films
Mhm.
that are scary that I could watch at any point of the year. That they're not really so really restrained for the Halloween season, but
Right.
for a good chunk of them, you can watch. You specifically watch them during the time of Halloween because it just evokes that certain feeling for you. Because as the ones he mentioned before, Halloween Town, Twitches, and all that. Or how about uh, that one Bette Midler movie? You, the one with the witches. You know what I'm talking about. I forget its name sometimes, but the
Which one?
the
Say it again.
the Bette Midler movie. You know, the one with witches. Bette Midler and all those
Hocus Pocus?
Hocus Pocus. Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Would you call
When you say witches, there's a lot of movies with witches. Just saying.
But there's specifically one with Bette Midler as a witch, as the main witch. So
That's
that's
fair.
all I'll say. Uh, can we really call that scary? I personally wouldn't, but it definitely is a fun movie that a lot of people watch all the time, and that's because of the Halloween feeling. So I think. what the main answer to our question of what makes a Halloween movie is specifically the feelings that we associate with it. We have to have a certain connection with it, and uh, a certain linking factor between that and the Halloween time as a whole. And
Yeah.
I'm sure for so many different people, it's going to be a different movie for different people. Like I'm
Mhm.
certain some people will watch different movies than what we will. But for us, I want to ask Drew, what sort of movies do you watch every time Halloween rolls around that you just specifically associate with Halloween?
So I definitely will try and watch Halloween at some point throughout the year or throughout the Halloween season because it's Halloween. It definitely fits. It definitely is fitting for the season. Something else I try and watch is not a movie, but a show. I always try and watch Hunting of Hill House. I
Hmm.
really try and work that into the season because it to me does fit the Halloween season. Part of the show builds to a Halloween episode and everything happens sort of around that time. And the ghosts and the spookiness of it, it does fit into Halloween. That's a show that I will always try and watch around that time. There are others too, and other movies like the Universal monster films or something. I really try and watch every now and then. I'm actually going to try and watch some before the end of this year,
Hmm.
or before the end of the season, I should say. And then there are some others too that I really try and watch, or I have a goal on my letterboxd where I am trying to watch 13 brand new movies for Halloween, 13 horror movies. Now, they're not all explicitly like Halloween films, but they're pretty good movies that fit into the theme of Halloween, the theme of horror, and all that.
Definitely very good answers. I always try to do something similar. I love watching Halloween on the day of. It's part of my Halloween traditions, and I love I love so many classic Universal monster movies. Like I recently
Mhm.
rewatched Dracula and the Wolfman, and it's like, wow, these were so well made. I mean, Dracula, granted, you could tell was made in 1930 because there's no music score at all. So many people associate so many of these films with the classic organ music, but Dracula didn't have a single bit of music throughout the entire movie, and I find that so
Yeah.
interesting. It's like a sign of how movie making has evolved, and
Mhm.
there are definitely probably some places where it would have benefited from a score, but I digress. Uh,
Yeah.
Wolfman definitely had much more of an intense theme and score behind it, which I found so refreshing. And and like I mentioned before, I love watching The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, because
Mhm.
it takes me back to when I was in like grade school, and my classmates and I would have little Halloween parties where we would bob for apples and dress up in fun costumes and pass around candy. Candy, there you go,
Yeah.
is another major element of Halloween. It's supposed to be
Mhm.
like giving candy out to children or whoever comes to your door dressed in a costume because
Mhm.
some people just can't let it go. But uh that sort of feeling, and candy apples. Maybe like if you're in California or Southern California, you could go up to Ukaipa to go to Oak Glen and see how that sort of goes around. Uh, that's a little local thing. I love Oak Glen. It's so much fun. And just having that kind of feeling, it's just like enforcing that is what makes the Halloween season so fun because it's not just about scary. It's not just about what's creeps you out or what makes you uncomfortable. It's about what the fun of being scared. When you feel your heart racing, when you feel the need to just run from something or hide, that's sort of it's fun. We don't get that
Yeah.
every year, all year. We spend the entire year trying to be away from things that scare us. It's
Mhm.
what, but with Halloween specifically, it's a holiday celebrating that. It's celebrating that fun feeling to scare yourself, either intentionally or not intentionally, and the emotions that it can bring you back to when you were a kid, when things were a lot easier, when you could go door to door to people's houses demanding free candy, or else you get to pelt their house with eggs or toilet paper or whatever, because it's fun, because it's just
Mhm.
part of the Halloween tradition. And so many people have so many different things, and I'd love to hear about them. So please let us know if your platform has comments. Please let us know, what do you listen to get into the Halloween spirit? Because everybody's going to have different answers, and I,
I,
for one, love to hear about it. So
yeah. Another one I watched last year that really fits with the Halloween season and is much more horror, Trick or Treat.
Oh yeah.
Trick or Treat fits into the theme of Halloween because it's an anthology. There's a lot of different stories, there's a lot of different ideas that fit into Halloween that really represent it. You have the trick, you have the treat, you have masks, you have the before and after, you have jack o' lanterns, you have all these different really fun stories that fit in and really work with the idea of Halloween. And the whole idea of it is all this happens on Halloween night. So it really fits with it and everything, which is really fun. And there's some truly good stories and some truly good moments in it as well.
Yeah, and that's definitely a very solid recommendation. One that
Mhm.
I think tried to represent the Halloween feeling but sort of failed uh, was the recent, not recent, it's like a couple years old, but the very recent adaptation of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And
Right.
normally I would be all for a movie based on that. That book series is messed up. It makes goosebumps blush and hide under the covers, you know? But the
Mhm.
movie itself is it tries to do those, and it had elements that could have worked. But for one thing, it tried to link all of these scary ideas behind a flowing narrative. This would have worked much better as like an anthology series, like Demon Knight or no,
Mhm.
not Demon Knight, or like the Twilight Zone movie or something like that,
I was gonna say like Creep Show
or
too. I know
Creep
Creep
Show.
Show wasn't technically like a movie or anything, but
Yeah,
or was it a movie?
yeah, it was. It was two movies
Okay,
actually.
yeah, kind of like Creep Show too.
Exactly. It could have benefited from being more like Creepshow, but instead it was just trying to be the Goosebumps movie. You know, it had a flowing narrative
Mhm.
behind it, and I feel like that, and not to mention the the set designs and the colors and the lighting and everything just don't really scream Halloween. They just scream I'm trying to be scary. So why aren't you scared? You know what I mean? And there are a couple scary moments in it, like that one girl who pecks at a wart on her face and it's a big spider egg. That's scary. Or this one
Mhm.
kid who's running from a creepy monster lady in a hallway and she's just everywhere he turns, you know? She's just there
Right.
and she eventually swallows him up. That's scary. But then it just sort of undoes it all. Like every time it seems like a kid's gonna die in there, it's just undone by the end. It feels like it's trying too hard to be a teen scary movie without really capturing what made those work. Because think of
Right.
because think of what makes Hocus Pocus work, or Halloween Town, or everything else. It's the certain
Or Halloween for that matter.
yeah, or Halloween. Just what makes those work so well is a certain feeling and a certain aesthetic behind it, but it's just not present in that movie. So I don't know.
Right. No, I definitely agree with that, and I definitely think that there are certain aspects and certain attributes that I mean, we're kind of just saying the same thing, so there's definitely not much else to really say. But at the end of the day, there's something for everyone at this time of season, and there's something that everybody watches to get into the mood for the spooky season. And there's things that people would consider to be Halloween movies and things that people would not consider to be Halloween movies. But it's going to, at the end of the day, be personal preference. But then also, there are ones that people can 100% agree fit into the spooky season. Even if it's just a horror movie or even if it's just something that has Halloween and spooky aspects to it. Like, I mean, not everything has to be in your face with the scary and the horror. Like, for example, where I am right now, it just started getting cold outside. And where I used to live in Arizona, and it would be warm.
Mhm.
Like, I looked at what it was right now. It is like 90 degrees or 80 degrees in Arizona. It doesn't feel like Halloween. It doesn't feel like October. But you step out here, and even though it's cold, even though it's chilly, it has that feeling of fall. It has that feeling of the spookiness and the spooky season because it's chilly, and that what fits fall. So there are certain things that fit with Halloween as well.
Exactly. The cold feeling, that's something that I always look forward to. But I can't because it's California. Thanks, California. So, uh, to sum up, what makes a Halloween movie? I think it comes down to the individual preferences, but there are certain things that just feel like requirements, certain aesthetics, colors, and overall feelings and attitudes towards the holidays that help and to help make a movie feel like a specifically Halloween one instead of just a generic horror movie. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I
Oh yeah.
think to wrap up, all we'll say is we love Halloween, we love the spooky season, and we love all the movies and books and shows and everything else that we love to watch when this time of the year rolls around. And we're just going to enjoy as much of it as we can. So thank you for
Indeed.
joining us, everybody.
Yep. Thank you guys for joining us. And we got some more spooky stuff lined up for the rest of this month. So please stay tuned and listen in for more spooks and chills.